Mercenaries aren't what they used to be. No, to my eye they seem very much as violent-tempered and mean-spirited as ever. Things aren't what they used to be is the rallying cry of small minds. When men say things used to be better, they invariably mean they were better for them because they were young and had all their hopes intact. The world is bound to look a darker place as you slide into the grave. What's up, bookworms? I am Mike, and today we are talking about sort of the fourth book in Joe Abercrombie's First Law series, Best Served Cold. I say sort of because the trilogy is kind of its own full story, and this isn't exactly a continuation of that. Just more of this world, and I'll get into it a little bit. First, I want to say if this is the first time you're finding the channel, all of my book review episodes are full of spoilers, so just a warning there. I'll get into the entire plot, all the characters, what happens in the whole thing. My Let's Discuss segments are spoiler-free and more of a trying to convince people that haven't read the series or an author to give them a try. I do have a Let's Discuss segment about why you should read the First Law, and I'll link that in the comments and at the end of the video. So if you have not read the first, now 4 books in the First Law series and you plan to, please bookmark this video, come back after you've read it. Okay, spoiler warning over, let's get into it. Let me start off by giving a little background. I read the First Law trilogy when it was still relatively new. The final book had not even been out a year when I ran through them pretty quick. You can watch the Let's Discuss video for the whole story there. But the reason I did not pick up Best Served Cold when it first came out was I heard basically I haven't picked up any of the standalone books until after they were released because I was told that none of the characters that you loved from the original trilogy are coming back. It's all new characters, but in the same universe. And my reaction to this was, you mean to tell me that son of a bitch Baez is not going to be getting his comeuppance in these books? So I passed. And now that I've read Best Served Cold, I feel like an idiot. because this book, in every single way, is just as good as any of the ones in the original trilogy. And I don't say that lightly. People know how much I love that story. But there are returning characters in this. It's just not any of the POV characters from the original trilogy, except maybe like a cameo or two. There's still very much a presence in the story, and it does not feel at all like a spin-off or anything like that, like any of that stuff didn't happen. There's plenty of references to it. You don't have to read that to get this, but if you have, it's going to help quite a bit. So, like I said, I feel like an idiot for waiting this long to read one of the standalones. However, I'm excited, especially if they stay this way, because I feel like I just got 3 new First Law books without having to wait a year or two between release. So, let's get into what made Best Served Cold so dang good. If I had to sum up the story in one sentence, it would be, imagine The Count of Monte Cristo with a screenplay written by Quentin Tarantino. You hear the title Best Served Cold, and I feel like everyone knows at that point it's a catchphrase for revenge by now. And this isn't the first they thought I was dead, now I'm going to get my revenge type of stories out there, not by a long shot. But when you add that Abercrombie flavor to it that I love so much in the original trilogy, it takes on a breath of fresh air to a somewhat bloated and overdone genre. So, Monza Mercado, okay, she's the baddest lass in the galaxy, right? Her and her brother Benna lead this group of mercenaries called the Thousand Swords, which are in the employ of Grand Duke Orso, which, if you recall from the last book, this is the father of the now Queen of the Union, Therese, the one Giselle is unhappily married to. So even though he had what is basically a cameo in the last book, it already feels like the same world. Long story short, she's been fighting to help make make Orso the king of Styria, which is the eastern continent we heard about a few times in the trilogy. He's very close now to it, and he's starting to get scared that Monza is becoming way too popular among the people, and so he decides, hey, I'm going to kill her and her brother because they're going to probably try to usurp my throne once I get there. So, I mean, there's 7 people involved in this whole assassination attempt here. Orso, his 2 sons, Foscar and Ario, his right hand, basically, in General Ganmark, his bodyguard, Gaba, Mothis from Valiant Balk, who is also in the trilogy, and her own right hand from the Thousand Swords in Carpi. So they quickly kill Bennett right in front of her, and then they struggle to kill her a little bit. Eventually, they just throw her off the top of the castle, the terrace, and down into a mountain. Her brother's dead body actually kind of breaks her fall, and that's how she survives and is eventually nursed back to health by an unnamed figure, and you don't find out who that is until like the second to last chapter. So while she's being healed, she develops an addiction to husk, which I'm gathering is some kind of opium. But what do I know? Once she's mobile again, she starts, collecting help, recruiting people to kind of help her get a revenge on the 7 who must die, as I believe they're called. Here's where we get all sorts of tie-in with the original trilogy, and I just start feeling at home right away. She recruits Carl Shivers, who fought with the Northmen in books 2 and 3. The return of Nicomo Casca. And that is something I never knew that I needed in my life until I read this. I liked him in the last trilogy, but I love him in this. Very, very fun tertiary character in books 2 and 3. And he just gets to shine in this book. And I loved him. I couldn't get enough of him. Also, Practical Fatari is back. So it isn't quite getting the band back together or anything like that, but it's familiar enough that, you get the feeling that this is the same world, just a different time and place. As for the new members of her ragtag group, we'll call them, we get Friendly, who I think might be autistic. I'm not really sure. He's an ex-con with a very strange obsession with numbers, but he will cut you if you say anything bad about his dice. Then we get Castor Morvir, who is, I think is referred to as what is a poisoner. And it's like, imagine a potions master who works exclusively in poisonings and assassinations, and his young assistant Day, who serves to complete his sentences and eat a lot of fruit. She's very charming. So that's our 7 to take on our 7 list. Some of the criticism I've read about this story is that it feels too episodic. It does have 7 parts to go along with these 7 she has to kill. And some said they feel like they just made it like a video game with a final boss at the end of each level. It didn't bother me at all in doing so. Abercrombie really fleshed out the world in this one. In the trilogy, I felt like we just kind of got just Adua in Midland, we got just Anglan in the north, we got just Dagasta in the south. I still feel like we got way more descriptions of the old empire in the west than we did the central locations, and that isn't a problem here. We see damn near all of Styria in this, and I love it. It feels like the world building that maybe got swept aside a little bit in the original trilogy. So I guess the best way to do this is list each of the kills before I talk about the main cast moments. Gaba is first. It's really nothing special, besides Abercrombie's incredible ability to describe violence in the most meticulous way, because Monza beats him to death with a hammer while Shivers and Friendly watch. The Malthus death is a little more fun. If you want to say murder is fun here. But they had to find a way to break into Valiant in bulk, so it started to feel like a heist story real quick. And the whole time, I'm all worried for them because, if you read the trilogy, hey, I know who runs Valiant in bulk. I don't know if this is the people you want to piss off. But each of these kills, you kind of see why each team member is valuable. And this time it's Morvir. He succeeds in poisoning and killing Malthus, but also he's willing to poison half of the staff to get to him, as he poisons all the ledgers in the entire bank. This starts a rift between him and Monza for the rest of the book. Never really heals. Next up is Prince Ario, and with it comes the biggest cameo in this book, which is King Jazal. Has been king for 2 years now. It's an amusing scene where you see he's too shy to make a move on his wife is pregnant with their 3rd child, so apparently she gave him her blessing. Imagine that. But he's too shy to kind of make a move on Monza, who's posing as a prostitute, so she gives him a husk pipe and he passes out. Fun scene, though. It was a fun scene. And I believe Brimmer Dan Gorst had a cameo there, but that's not confirmed. She's able to get in a room eventually alone with Ario, and she stabs him in the neck, tosses him out a window, and Shivers helps her escape. That's something that's going to happen a lot in this book. Every time it seems Monza is finished, here comes Shivers to get her out of a tight spot, as much as he's wrestling with that decision each time, more and more. Next, we got General Ganmark. This is probably my favorite sequence in this entire book. The sword fight sequence between him and Monza and eventually Casca is just fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful writing. I've read a ton of fantasy, and I think this is probably the best sword fight sequence I have ever read. And that's not hyperbole. It's like in The Princess Bride when Wesley and Inigo are fighting, but do that with 2 people who absolutely despise one another and still respect each other. It's the longest one of the kills. It's the longest one of them the whole sequence takes in the entire book, but God, is it satisfying. I'd say it's like 30 to 50 pages. But this being an Abercrombie book, you can't be happy for long, as Koska takes what appears to be a mortal stomach wound in the fight. He has to be left behind, and it doesn't matter that you find out later that he actually didn't die there, because it was as good of a goodbye as a character could ask for. And I was even feeling a little bit itchy in the eyes, I'm not gonna lie here, especially when Friendly offers to stay behind and fight and die with him. It's just an awesome, like, mid-season finale type portion of the story. Next, we start to deal with things falling apart. Day gets convinced by Monza that Morville's eventually gonna screw him over and make her the scapegoat if they get caught. And so she tries to poison him, but after a lot of trickery back and forth, it ends with Day being the one who ends up swallowing poison and dies. Also, Monza and Shivers, they got captured before that sword fight I was just talking about, and it ends up with Shivers getting his eye burned out with a hot poker. And he actually eventually ends up blaming her for it. He says a lot, it should have been you. Add to the political side of things, we got the return of I don't know if it's Carlotte or Carlo. Like I said, I've never listened to the audiobooks, even though I've heard they're really good. Carlo Den Eider from books 2 and 3. She offers to pay Shivers to kill Monza because Galacta has demanded it. It's a nice little call out. They never actually say his name. They call him the Cripple. And, if you've read these books, you know who the Cripple is. Vitari says things are getting too hot, so she bounces, gets the pay, gets retro pay. Friendly is concerned he hasn't heard from his employer, so he's gone, and Morville decides it's time to switch sides to Orso. So it's just down to Monza and Shivers with 3 left on the list. Or actually, it's 2 left on the list. 3 left on the list. As a reader, you believe at this point that Shivers has turned coat. He's been really, really just growing more and more angry with Monza as time goes on. He wanted to be a better man, so to put, and he just becomes more and more of a monster as this book goes along, especially after he got his eye burned out. So you believe he's turned coat at this point. He's betraying Monza to Carpi and her old 1,000 sword crewmates. And we only learn then that it's a ruse, and they ambush and eventually kill Carpi. She tries to go back and retake leadership of the 1,000 Swords, only to find out a very much alive Nakomo Casca has already beat her to it. And anytime Casca and Monza share a scene in this book, it's just gold. There's another big battle with Casca helping Rogant basically win. And they've captured Fuscar, and Monza goes to confront him. She decides not to kill him because he begs for his life. And she points out, even when she first made her list, she pointed out, he said he wanted nothing to do with this, and he stormed out of the room. But still, she decides not to kill him, though. She has a conscience, and she's going to let him live. But Shivers does his best Bloody Nine impression and just takes it upon himself to just turn this guy's head into mush. So we're down to just one. Before they can confront Orso, though, Morville successfully kills the newly crowned Rogant and the rest of the monarchy except for Monza. Great scene. He eventually dies trying to take out Casca, and Shivers finally turns on Monza, but she's saved at the last moment by Friendly, and those two fight, and he's now under the employ of Casca, by the way, so it's a lot of madness going on this last act. I'll probably skip over some stuff, but it's just so good. The last 200 pages, I could not put this down. But as they fight, she goes and she confronts and finally kills Orso with the assistance of Shanked, who you've kind of thought this whole book that Shanked was this very minor POV character that you thought was, hunting her the whole book. And it turns out he was actually killing everyone else that was trying to kill her. And you find out that he was the one who nursed her back to health at the beginning. So interesting little twist there. And more on Shanked in a minute. With Orso dead, there's no real leadership left. Shanka is once again in shambles. I'm sorry, Shanka. Styria is once again in shambles, and we start to see her look forward to getting all that under control. She refuses the help of Valiant Bulk straight to Yoru Sulfur's face, and it's interesting to see how he doesn't take that too lightly, and where his master is going to take how he's going to take this. The book ends where she's granting Shivers his freedom, and he decides it's time to go back to the north, which makes me think we shall see him again in these other standalones. Okay, so I'm going to talk about each character here and what I liked and did not like. Let's start with Monza. In best Abercrombie style, I love how flawed she is. There's no Mary Sue problem or whatever they're calling it now. There's nothing like that with her. She messes up. She asks for help. She overcomes great odds. She's strong. She gets beat. She wins. I mean, she learns a valuable lesson along the way. But no one can write a morally gray character quite like Abercrombie, at least not for me. And I mean, while it's never confirmed, it isn't exactly denied that Monza and her brother were actually lovers. Wow. I am surprised she lived through the end, though, and I think that's just because I didn't think Joe had it in him to give us somewhat of a happy ending, so it's kind of rare for a change. Nakomo Casca, besides Galacta, this is probably my favorite character in this universe now. I was heartbroken when I thought he had died, overjoyed when he was still alive. I was fist pumping every time he defied death afterwards. His whole struggle there with Morvir was so good. If there's a redemption arc in this story, with his alcohol abuse and basically being like a broke, penniless drunk lying on a gutter, it's back to being, a duke basically at the end of this. Or he wants to get his dukedom back. He was briefly a duke, but he's got his crew back. I guess he's not an alcoholic anymore. I don't know. He tried to have some of that grape stuff at the end, but he talked about how nasty it was. So I think he might go back to that goat's milk. But I hope he shows up again in the next 2 books or the upcoming sequel trilogy. I think at one point in this he says he's 48, so he'd be pretty damn old in the new books. But I'm hoping he shows up again in these standalones. The almost father-daughter relationship he has with Monza is a great one. Sometimes it comes off as like he's just trying to sleep with her, and other times it's real fatherly. In fact, there's a line he says to her that I wrote down here because I loved it that much. He tells her, "Do you know why I have always loved you, Monza? Even after you betrayed me, even more after you betrayed me, because I know you don't really believe any of that rubbish. Those are the lies you tell yourself so you can live with what you've done, what you've had to do." Anyone else would just go along with her or think she's just like some cold-hearted bitch or something like that. But Casca does the whole "you can't bullshit a bullshitter" thing with her, and I love it. Bring him back, Joe. Shivers, for most of the book, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of lukewarm on Shivers. I liked him in books 2 and 3. This one, I felt like Joe was kind of trying to have another Logan. And Shivers is far from Logan, in my opinion. I was okay with the trying to be a better man thing. And it was rather surprising also when you find out that he reveals that he actually hated his brother. And he was more angry at Logan for stealing the kill of his brother away from him than actually killing him. But as I was finished, I was like, his arc kind of makes sense. You end up hating something for so long, you can eventually become that thing that you hate. And like I said, I'm pretty sure we haven't heard the last of him in this story. Morvir and Day. This is about as gray of a character as Abercrombie has written. You want to say it's more black than gray, but this is the kind of guy who desires recognition for his big kills, but he also wants to be liked. That's a weird combination. I thought him really just a stone cold killer until you see he actually really did care for Day and his efforts to really try and work with Monza. At least in death, he now gets to, be known as the greatest poisoner ever after that trick with the crown. Day was just adorable most of the book. She made me want to eat fruit the whole time I read it. So I was eating an apple or a pear or peach or something like that. I had a feeling some main characters would die in this one. And it didn't surprise me that it was these 2. I thought it would be more, honestly. Vitari, always fun to see a familiar face, though she isn't really one of the ones I would have thought would show up in this. Her relationship with Shank is still an ambiguous one, at least unless I missed something. I believe they're married, but where the hell has he been all this time? Are these his kids? One of the kids, she calls him Cass, and one of the kids' names is Cass. So being the big reveal of him being a former assistant of Baez and them really despising each other really got me thinking. After his discussion with Sulfur, it's clear he and Baez do not like each other. But this might be the whole tinfoil hat thing going here, but he was revealed to be an eater. He constantly says he does not kneel, and Vitari refers to him as Kaz, as I said. I remember in Last Argument of Kings, Baez talking about King Casimir and this hatred for the man. So could these be one and the same person? I mean, this is like a really old theory I'm thinking about. This is like when people were like, "Oh, I think R plus L equals J," and they thought they were so smart. And I'm like, yeah, that theory's been out there for 15 years. So this book's 10 years old. If that theory's been out there a while, that's on me for reading it so late. I hope we'll find out. I really feel like his whole point in the story is kind of still up in the air. Friendly, I could take him or leave him, honestly. I thought he was an interesting character, but by about the 3rd or 4th POV chapter, I was ready for him to simply just be the muscle. I did like the whole apologize to my dice scene, though. That was really good. And I'm glad he's staying with Casca, as Casca needs someone to keep him on the straight and narrow as much as someone like Friendly could. I mean, in the end, man, I freaking love this book. I'm a huge fan of Alexander Dumas' Count of Monte Cristo, and this was every bit as fun and satisfying as that book is. My questions going forward are, who is the father of Manza's baby? Is it Shivers or is it Rogon's? Doesn't matter. Do one of Giselle and Tizrez's sons come knocking one day and saying, yo, I'm the rightful heir to Talon's? So that leaves open her return in the sequel trilogy if she's not in the other two standalones. And what's going on with the old crew? Are there references to the Union and the North still kind of pointing guns at one another? I think they said there's still some stuff going on with the South. What became of Dogman? Does that woman, Ishri, I believe her name, did she mention that her brother was killed by a woman? Does that woman just happen to be Pharaoh? Is she talking about Mamoon? So many tie-ins with the original trilogy, and I can't believe it took me this long to read it, honestly. I'm very much looking forward to the Heroes, but I am not reading that one next. A Little Hatred doesn't come out until September. It's almost June right now. I'm trying to pace myself, so I figure if I do one book, June, July, August, counting sharp ends there, then I won't have that long a wait between Red Country or Sharp Ends and A Little Hatred. I'm still working on Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, and I started the Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence last night because he's just so cool on Twitter and he talks to me all the time. So I felt like I owed it to him to read one of his books. So plenty more content to come on the channel in the coming weeks and months. That brings me to the part where I ask you to help out this channel if you can. If you like this video or anything else on the channel, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to beat YouTube's shitty algorithms that won't let your videos show up in a basic search unless you have at least 500 subscribers, and I'm barely halfway there. I love making these videos. I love talking about books, and I love talking with you guys about them. So please hit the subscribe button. Please share these videos with anyone you know that are interested in these stories, and please check out the other videos on the channel. I do a Let's Discuss feature about once a month that talks about an author or a series and why you should check them out, as well as these spoiler book reviews. We do a live podcast every week about what's current in pop culture, and currently, what stuff that I'm currently reading, I'll be doing reviews for, and stuff that I've already read, I'm going to be doing some reviews for when things slow down just a little bit. So I appreciate every single one of you. I love talking with you. We'll be back soon. Thank you for watching.